Hi guys, welcome to part 3 of building the thermal detonator. Welcome back to this video. Before I start talking about how to prepare the domes for painting, just want to go back on something on the last video regarding the electronics. When we get to this stage, I did mention that to test the sketch that you've programmed on the board, and it's actually quite important because this particular board didn't work properly when I tested it. For some reason the sound wasn't coming out quite how it should have been, and when I went back onto the computer to have a look at the sketch, I'd noted that the board had got it down as 3.3 volt at 8 megahertz rather than the 5 volt 16 megahertz, which obviously had a bit of a problem with the program. So if that ever happens, the best way to do that is obviously make sure that everything is completely switched off, rather than unsoldering the wires or the work that you've already done. If you grab hold of the adapter that you did before, you should be able to push in there, just hold it back and get a good connection, and then reinstall the sketch. Once it's reinstalled, take it off and then test the speakers again. In my case it worked the second time round. Got no idea why the computer changed what type of board I had, but anyway, just a thought, just to say, please make sure that the sketch is done rather than have the whole thing built then find out that the sketch is done. You won't have the ability then to reinstall it without unsoldering everything else. One of the other things that I didn't mention in the last video is, once you've printed off the inner housing, make sure you sand this down so it's nice and smooth and fits into the inner ring without any tension. Depending on how you print or what infill you put in this, I use 100%, so it gives it a good rigid and solid feel to it, but it can be quite hard without sanding it down to get in there, and you may snap some of these off. So again, when you do this, just make sure that it's all fits in nice and smoothly. As you can see, I've sanded this down and it just slots in very easy. Really should be doing this before you put any electronics in. You don't want to be doing that afterwards. Anyway, that's over and done with there. Okay, now on to the domes. I'll be sanding these down using the coarse grit sandpaper, so they give a really good feel. As you can hear there, you've got where the print lines are. Sand that right down, then I'll probably sand it off with the medium sandpaper, and then I'll be using the Bondo putty to put over there and sand it down. So I'll come back and show you how that looks when it's done. I've now sanded down both the domes. I've used the coarse sandpaper followed by the medium one to give it a really good smooth finish. This is the bottom dome. You then need to put on the Bondo putty, and the reason for that is I've already done that with the top part, and you really can see here all the little imperfections that you think you've got out by sanding. This will now have a coat of primer, and again sanded back again. I'll put some more Bondo putty on there if I need it, and I'll just keep sanding it back until I get the finish that we want. You will also notice that I've made the hole in here a lot bigger. This will now fit the chrome bezel that I'll be using, which fits in, and obviously the nut goes on the back there to hold this in place. But you will see that if you look at, you see so when the switch goes over, it isn't protruding to stop the switch from covering the red light. There'll be a little red lens going in this. So I'm going to crack on and finish both these domes off, and also the handle, and I'll be back to show you what they look like. Welcome back. As you can see, I've now finished the domes. I've primed them, giving it a really good smooth finish. This is now ready for the Alclad gloss black base to be put on before we put the chrome on. You'll also notice on the inside I've painted this with a matte black. It's just an ordinary can of Humbrol matte black. This is because this will be taken off when you go to use the kill switch, and it just makes it look a little bit nicer. And here is the top dome with the standing place that I used to paint it with. The handles have also been done, the two-part handle. This particular one, the bottom part of the handle, takes an awful lot of sanding down. If you can see from the original one before any painting or sanding has been done, you can see where the support lines have been on the printer. Because it sits on the printer at an angle, it takes an awful lot of sanding down. So what you find is once you've primed it, you can see the blemishes. You just keep sanding, priming, Bondo, sanding, priming, and you should then get a really good finish on this. This particular one, I'll be using the Humbrol metal coat steel paint for that. This part will just be used, we'll just be using the Humbrol matte black. I then tend to give it a very fine dry brush with a bit of silver, just to give it a bit of a metallic feel. So that's all done. Now the paints that I'll be using, the first one will be the Alclad gloss black. Fantastic stuff. You're going to need to use this if you're going to be using the Alclad chrome, or even the aluminium. I use the chrome on this. Using this on an airbrush, you will need to use the Alclad airbrush cleaner. You can't just use the basic cleaner that for that particular paint. You're going to leave that to dry, and then I'll be using the Alclad chrome. Again, when you clean this, you can then clean this with just the standard airbrush cleaner, as this is more of an acrylic paint. Once I've let that dry, I'll be using the aqua gloss. Now you don't have to use this, but because you're going to be handling, or I tend to handle it quite a bit, I don't want the chrome rubbing off. This gives it a really good finish. Don't need to shake this, and you don't need to use an awful lot of it, but I'll be doing that. So that's that there. Now the chrome bezel that I use, just so you know, I use a little red lens. Now if you didn't sand down the top hole in the dome, this would just fit in nicely, but because I like to use the chrome bezel, which is why I've sanded that one down, you're going to need to cut this right towards the end, so you've just left with the top cap. You probably just need to give it a bit of a sanding down, and then when you stick that into the top of the chrome bezel, you get that, and then that will fit in the top. So that's how you get the red lens in the chrome bezel. So I'm going to go ahead and do the first coat of the black paint, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. One thing I forgot to show you was you will need to make a little hole in the bottom part of the handle. You can see here in the pictures, you will need a ruler and a pencil, and what you can see is from the end of the slot, measure 5 mm, mark where the hole is, and then you just need to drill a hole through there, and you'll be fitting an M3 screw that will enable the switch on the electronics to move down when you push this slide back. So yeah, you just need to make a hole on that. I will suggest that you do that before you start to paint this with the metal coat silver. So I will be back again once I've painted all the parts, and I'll show you them. And here are the domes painted with the gloss black undercoat, ready for the chrome to go on. I'm trying to get it in the light so you can actually see how smooth, really good gloss finish. You can polish these up. I tend to, if there's any slight imperfection or dust, just make sure you've got that all off before you apply the chrome. The best way to spray this is 3 or a couple of light coats followed by a good third coat, using a PSI on your airbrush of around 15 to 20. That's the bottom dome, and the top dome is done exactly the same. So we're ready to put the chrome on there, and I'll be back very shortly. Okay, just before I put the varnish on the chrome, I just thought I'd show you guys what it looks like before you do that, so you can make a decision when I show you the next stage with it on, the difference. So that's with the chrome on, and you can see what a lovely finish it gives. Just need to spend a bit of time on that. So that's the top dome, and obviously you've got the bottom part to match. I've masked all inside here just to keep the black, so I've got no silver on the black where I painted it. But I'll come back to you with the rest of the items painted. And here are the domes with the varnish applied. I personally prefer to put the varnish on it. I just think it takes the starkness off the look of the chrome on its own. So that's the top part. This is the bottom dome, again nice finish, and there's the black interior as I showed before. Now the handle, I'll finish that. This has been painted with the metal coat paint, and I've painted this with Humbrol matte black and just put a bit of a silver dry wash there. You can also see I've also put in the M3 bolt ready to put this together. That's everything complete now. So all we've got to do is put all this together to finalise the build, which I shall be doing in the next video, and I'll also be showing you the display case that I've designed to go with it. So if you have any questions regarding this, or any of the things that I've done paint wise, anything at all, just put them in the link below, and I'll see you very shortly in the final video.